Hello and welcome to the show. Today is a very special day. What started off as a passion project in 2019 is now a leading platform for all things architecture and design across the country. We are beyond humbled and can't wait to reveal our plans for 2026. Like the delivery of any project, this is only possible with an absolute rockstar team. My admiration and respect goes out to the aForm crew. They have been absolutely relentless and fueled by passion, sometimes fueled by coffee and matcha. I'd like to thank Ishita Das for her design guardianship and ensuring our brand evolved with purpose. Shweta Satyanathan for bringing the vibes, graphic skills, and curating our awesome newsletter. Jovel Godoy for ensuring we move like a well-oiled machine. An absolute legend with scheduling, PR, and research. Last and by no means least, Jasim Alfonso, our audio guru that has been with us from the very beginning. His attention to detail is next to none. If you wondered why and how we sound so good, Jasim is the answer. He is quite literally our one-man Swiss Army knife. I could not be more proud of this team. And now, without further ado, welcome to aForm 100. We debated internally on who or what this episode should be about. After much deliberation, and as you can probably see in the episode title, we came to a resounding conclusion. When aForm was a concept, he was one of the first to give it the thumbs up. Over the years, he has supported the show and continues to be an advocate for what we do. Today, we have on my colleague, pseudo mentor, and fellow Y61 fanboy, Mark Klever. As an architect's architect, he has championed the craft of not just design, but design delivery and execution. With numerous award-winning projects across multiple continents, Mark has amassed a portfolio that is both diverse and deep. Much to get through on this special episode, so without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you, Alan. Wow, it's amazing. It's amazing to be here, I must say, and congratulations, actually. I must start with that. You on this platform that has now been quite a few years underway, and it's an honor to be here.
Yeah, there was a lot of internal debate on who this episode should be and what it should be about. But as you guys probably heard in the intro that I had, Mark was one of the few people that actually sort of heard of aForm as a concept, as in what it was, even before I started to do anything about it. And I must say, you were one of the earliest sort of supporters, even if that's the right word, a fan already.
100%. I mean, I could see that there was definitely an interest. I mean, I was interested in it, and there was nothing really, anything that I heard of quite like it, and a real, safe space for architects and designers just to sit around and chat quite openly.
Yeah.
I think it's a great platform.
Yeah. And I think what's made it fun is that it's quite conversational. So it's not unlike some of the other stuff out there, which is more sort of curated and polished. This is much more rough around the edges.
Yeah. Well, if you do know me, I am uncurated and unpolished.
All right. So I think that's a perfect segue to get into where I would like to start, which is for someone like yourself, there's multiple points in your career where we could sort of drop a little pin and start from there. But what I think is most interesting is recently there's been a pretty major milestone, I would say, as far as your career as an architect goes. And that is, in fact, MKD. I won't say any more. If you could tell us what that is and what inspired you to do it.
MKD. Well, the letters is Mark Klever design, and that pretty much speaks for itself. What inspired me? Well, I've always wanted to have and be part of a boutique design firm, whether it be doing architecture, landscape, interiors, or anything to do with the kind of the building space and design space. And it's been a long time coming, when I look at it, at how I've got to here. I guess it really started almost 10 years ago, where I was working for quite a medium to large size hospitality firm. We're doing hotels and resorts and luxury apartments. We just delivered a major one just before I left. And even then, I thought that was probably a little late to do that. And it's been an interesting journey from that point, where I had partnered up with a collaborator in terms of getting the business up and running. He had a number of businesses, of which mine, the architecture, became one of. And that stretched for a while. And then it became pretty quickly obvious that it needed to stand by itself. And so there was a breakaway from that. A number of years we're talking about going by before this happened. And then, which it kind of whittled down to just one design group, which we had some lighting design and we had some integration. And then it kind of came down to just architecture. And it was always going to be, I guess, about the architectural wing of any group that was going to be the strongest because I was running it, I was leading it. And it then became very apparent that if I'm going to run it and lead it, I might as well do it my way. And so obviously there's never a perfect time to break away from something which is well established. And so I had to really pick that time to do so. And also I had clients that had been with me for years and had seen me go through these kind of transitional setups, if you like, that I needed to do goodbye. And so I had to advise them that this was going to happen and to make that transition out on my own as seamless as possible. And so a lot of the actual timing of it was based around that and other people that I wanted to potentially join me in this journey to see how that was going to fit around their lives because we'd built up an awesome team and I wanted to make sure that I did right by them as well. And yeah, so October last year, we kicked it off. MKD, here we are.
Yeah. And I must say, having been part of that journey, on my side of things, right? It feels like all of it flew by. It doesn't feel like now when you say it's been, 10 years and so on, it doesn't feel that long. It feels like it kind of all just became like one big blur and then MKD happened.
Yeah, it's a phase of our lives, Alan. Long weekends flick by, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, before you know it, it's been 10 years. It has gone quick. And especially here, I think, and people say this all the time, Dubai is on a different kind of time zone, it appears.
Yes.
Time just moves differently, flicks past faster. You kind of measure it by season, but then some of the seasons overlap and some are extended. So yeah, and I think for an architect, it's very difficult. It's a lot easier to measure time in the projects that you do.
Yeah, weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 6 weeks.
And we're just closing one out. This was this period when where our focus was on that project and that you can kind of timestamp. Yeah. Time by project delivery
I think a lot of our OG listeners know that I had like a big Brabus phase because that project like really, really like tested me quite a bit and it did come up on the pod quite a bit. So yeah, there are people who like refer to me, be like, man, back. I heard you back when Brabus was happening. I'm like, I know. So if I may ask a very candid question then, which is something that I ask a lot of new studios that are established, which is a market like Dubai, especially today, where luxury, resi, hospitality is a really, really hot sector. There are many new players as compared to if you were to look, say, 10 years back. So what I ask all of them, which I would like to ask you as well, which is obviously when you start something like MKD, you have certain ambitions and certain things that you want to achieve. But more importantly, what would make MKD stand apart from another studio that started around the same time with similar talent, expertise, and etc.? What would make someone look at MKD and say, you know what, I want to go there?
Yeah, good question. There are a lot of players, and I only see snippets of probably half of who's actually here in Dubai now, and I do see some great work being delivered. And you kind of when I see great work, I have the kind of two feelings. One's like that's awesome and with joy, and then there's like I wish I'd done that. You kind of have these kind of polarizing emotions sometimes, which is always I think healthy for a designer to kind of always be on that kind of side of appreciation and envy at the same time. So yeah, back to what would set us apart. I do think we're a little unique, I feel, in the way that we work our workflow. And that is taking our clients along with us on the design journey. And this goes more into the technical side of delivering, how we deliver and communicate our designs. And I've always been a great advocate for BIM, or virtual building it was called when I first started looking at Archicad in the 90s, where it was, you were building something in 3D from the beginning. And clients love this, I find, whether it be a virtual model or some form of early representation of what their project is looking like, and to be able to take them along on that journey and give them access to the model through viewer apps like BIMX, etc., where you can literally give them almost live updates of that process. Those clients then almost take some ownership of it. So they join that along. And so you get a lot more. Sometimes it's very instant feedback. Sometimes it could be a poison chalice that you're not quite finished one part of the model, and that would be kind of Murphy's Law is the area which they'll focus on and go, what's going on here? Right. But that's one thing I think that we do well at MKD is we engage our clients from the beginning. We certainly give them that opportunity to engage in the whole design process. I think also having spent nearly 20 years here, there's certainly an understanding from our existing clients that may recommend us to new that, okay, there's a lot of experience here. I feel like MKD is a product of me growing and developing as a professional, but also with it, the kind of teething problems of a growing city that there was. I mean, it's just grown so quickly in 23 years since I've been here, and all the processes that go with it. So I think that sets us up to having this kind of local knowledge, but also more global understanding, global reach. So I think that's one interesting thing.
It is interesting. I think you touched upon a couple of things there, which I'd like to talk about. But just before that, I think if I were to sort of say also what sets MKD apart is to some extent innovation, which is something which I see a lot of studios struggle with, in the sense of everyone wants to say that, yes, we're innovative and yes, we're pushing boundaries and so on. But the reality of it is that if you in fact do that, you're bound to fail at some point. Something is going to break just because you're trying out new things, in fact, truly innovating. And what I see at MKD is that those sort of minor losses, as I like to call it, they're actually embraced, which is a very rare thing to see across design studios. You would think design studios by nature would be more experimental, but in many cases, not really.
Yeah, I think as an architect, you have to balance up that concept of innovation with also being a professional and being able to deliver. And so there's often this kind of duality of having to be creative. On one point, one side of the brain is expressing itself in a creative manner, wanting to do things new, try new materials, new combinations. And then there's the kind of constructability side of you, or the PI insurance side of you that goes, don't use a material that hasn't been tried and tested or in a combination. So there's those things. And then I guess that's kind of an architect's kind of spread across those thoughts. Yeah, I enjoy and embrace wherever we can to start from first principles, get the crayons out, and really don't be hemmed in by something which just because you've done it before. That's always the safety net. And you see it with residential developments. Every 1 and 2 bed apartment looks exactly the same. Every almost luxury villa has this kind of certain elements to it. So yeah, I think it's something that we always try to do. We don't believe in copy and cutting and copy and pasting, creating a cookie cutter. We believe in the individuality of every client. Therefore, so should be their project.
Correct.
And give every opportunity to do that.
Gotcha. So then I feel like I have to ask this on behalf of maybe a lot of the listeners who have become project managers, who have become, somewhat outside of the luxury residential space, which is in a place like Dubai, I'm assuming that the norm is that everyone wants something different. Everyone wants something which is quote unquote not seen before. The word that I hate the most, iconic. Everyone wants that, but they cannot define it for you.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to hear, because obviously you're out there very front end, meeting a lot of these people who have the aspiration to build their own home, invest in a home, etc. What are they after today? What would inspire them? What would motivate them? What would get them excited today?
Well, it's a very tough question. I mean, it's hard to kind of group them into something like that. But there's definitely, as an architect, you want to try and find out what they value. And one person's iconic is different from another. And yeah, we'll probably do well by maybe creating something which wasn't iconic, something which was really trying to be really subtle. I find, this is maybe taking a bit of a detour, but some of the most innovative work around is actually being the most subtle. And I think there's room for that in Dubai, but it's not what a lot of people want in Dubai. People do want that kind of,
the pizzazz.
I want to make a statement. And sometimes you can make a statement by being absolutely silent, and
especially when everyone around you making a statement.
100%. And a point in question is a certain project that we did on, Hesse Street, where we were trying to be quite sophisticated and quiet for the street. I mean, it was still a 150 meter long building. Amongst all of that noise, it would be some respite from that. But then our client didn't get that, and he kind of decided to be like everybody else. But so if you can find the value that the client is after, whether it be this statement as an entrance to their project, or whether it be to do something which is innovative or different from the context. That's the path. There is, for me at the moment, sure, there's a lot of luxury villa clients which are very similar. They're all wanting something to that. And we're pushing them, if we can, in different directions so that, we want to show them that they can kind of break that mold of having, your double height entry space with a 5-meter high door.
Yeah. But if I can ask then, in general, what's their are they more open to it as they would have been, say, maybe 10 years back? Are they more open to being a bit more subtle now?
Yes, I think there is. I think certainly, I know another thing, this is just particular to Dubai, right, is that everyone is now able to view, visit, and explore design and environments. If not virtually, there's a lot more traveling happening. And there are certain platforms that, people are getting bombarded with architectural imagery daily on Pinterest, Instagram, socials. Yeah. And so that whole side of innovation becomes very tricky. Obviously, you have to move pretty quickly to be innovative in that digital space where you might design something, you're thinking that's interesting and maybe bespoke, and it's already up on the internet, and therefore by the time you come around to build it,
it's already outdated.
It's already outdated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a double-edged sword, I feel, because on the one hand, while I think there is value in Pinterest and so on, and having an excited / educated client when it comes to design is a good thing also. I feel like as professionals, we probably can sort out the mediocre and focus on what is good and what we like. But I feel like to an untrained eye, being bombarded, like you say, with all this imagery can probably start to influence you the wrong way. And you might start chasing trends more than what is contextual to what your place is. At least that's my opinion. Where do you kind of stand on it?
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm all for a client engaging, in design in whatever way that is. And if that's keeping a physical scrapbook or it's creating a Pinterest board, I do ask them to be a little bit more specific if they can about what they like about this image and what they, it's not just the vibe. It's kind of interest. I want to try and dig a bit deeper into why they feel like this is important or capture something that they want to have in their particular project. And and also I'm very quick to point out that, that 7-meter cantilever of 100 thick concrete isn't going to work, and I find that for some clients we are educating them on the way that buildings can and can't work, how glass staircases can't spiral by themselves without being supported by at least kind of
structural glass at the very least.
Gravity exists. Yeah,
damn gravity, right?
So and I think right now with now even beyond the render and videos which are also capturing these make-believe environments or constructions or designs which are so super real that it's going to be even trickier to do, to work with. Yeah,
I think it's an interesting junction because on the one hand, what I think is if you were a really good designer, there's so much more access to become better. But if you're kind of like, I don't want to say average, but let's just say mediocre, it's very easy to get swayed, wherein you become much more, the information starts driving you rather than you using the information. You see this a lot with AI as well. You see this a lot with student work even. I have intern Shweta over here kind of nodding along. But I guess the question is, how do you sort of know where to draw that line wherein you're like, yeah, this is cool, this helps, and now this is becoming too much,
When you're putting that mood board together for a client, when you have to really kind of disseminate on what's important, then, and I'm all for mood imagery, but I don't like showing buildings. I like to try and capture, maybe it's the materiality, it's the lighting, or it's combination of colors and more abstract things, I guess, than actually a building when I show mood boards. So yeah, I think that's how I like to use it as a resource without using, we're producing this or we're looking at this.
All right. Interesting.
That makes sense.
Switching gears a little bit at this point of the episode, I'd like to bring to your attention, Mark, that, let me give a bit of context to all our listeners. So you're involved in a lot of guest crits at universities and so on. I have been told that you are one of those crits which people look forward to because they value your honesty and they value your experience. So for our listeners who are probably in university, fresh grads, looking for what do I need to focus on? What does the market want? Where's a good use of my time? Where should I put my time? What kind of skills should I get? Etc., etc., etc. If you could speak to the fresh grad or the uni student, what would you tell them? Hey, listen, I think, look at this, focus on this, try this. What would you tell them?
Crikey. Yeah.
It's quite of a loaded question. I'm not holding back.
Well, we all work in BIM now, so that's a must. So you got to be working in 3D, and I get all the universities now are pushing that as a requirement anyway. But I think really dig into it. If you really want to land a position in a firm, then you have to make yourself useful. You can't be the kind of intern that turns up, makes the coffee, and tries to pick things up. No, you need to be valuable to the team that you join, and so get really good at 3D modeling. And it doesn't matter what it's using, Rhino, or if you're using Revit or ArchiCAD or any of those, SketchUp. Get really good. Architects see fresh grads obviously as an opportunity and also a liability. You would never give an intern the responsibility that, say, a senior architect would have, but at the same time, you value their freshness. They're coming out of years of just in their head and learning and developing skills. It's almost their superpower to have that immediate knowledge of current trends, of looking at different softwares which are coming on, especially now in the age of AI, where it's an interesting time for them to be entering the market because architects like myself trying to catch up or trying to understand it, and then you want someone that can bring that from what they've been dealing with. Yeah. So bringing yourself into that space where you are extending your university knowledge in terms of working around those softwares, being able to contribute to more like the presentation side. That's usually what happens. Interns come in, oh, you're good at Photoshop, fantastic. You jump onto this.
InDesign.
There you go. There you go. That's kind of, that's definitely what will happen. But if you're able to engage in the whole BIM side of it, being able to, especially if we're doing something that creates some or needs some kind of complex profile, for example, if you can extrude that in whatever software that then you can import in through a plugin to one of the BIM softwares, you're instantly having some value added to the team. And so that would be, being an architect and how to build a building, that takes years, sometimes decades. But that very simple thing, which adds into the workflow, that's an instant. And I think employers will value that. Okay.
I think that definitely for sure adds value in terms of your capability in the studio. Is there something which is a bit more of a soft skill that you would recommend in terms of learning how to create a narrative, body language, communication, something which is a bit more softer skill than, of course, knowing how to design and put a building together?
No, definitely soft skills are important. Being personable, being able to engage. I mean, no one wants, especially if you're looking to join a small firm, when every kind of wheel of traction needs to be moving in that direction. And so you want team members that can, join the team, not to be kind of friction against it. So being able to communicate well, being empathetic with people, that's definitely a skill that people look for. And I mean, with MKD, it's almost I put it out to the team, do you think this would be a good fit for us as a team? Yeah. I mean, which is separate from being a family.
Yes.
A family, you can't choose who your family is. But when you're a team, you can put that together.
Yeah.
So MKD is not a family, even though we have, a great kind of relationship, but we're a good team.
Yeah. I've received a lot of critical feedback on exactly this. I actually put a very detailed, not exactly a rant, but in my opinion, something informative out there, wherein I started to say exactly what you're saying, which is, I think organizations at large for sure, but even when you look at smaller boutique studios, this whole notion of we're a family is a bit wrong in my opinion. And that is because when you have a family, you're probably going to tolerate that uncle at the holidays because you have to, and you have no other way around it. Yeah. Wherein if you look at that in a business, even if you're an employee or if you're an owner, in both cases, that scenario doesn't work for you. Sooner or later, that's going to almost be cancerous to your entire organization. So if you kind of look at it as a team, wherein the whole purpose of a team being put together is to win championships, it becomes more about the performance and the value that you add, wherein not so much that everyone's on the cutting block at any point, but more about if you fall short in a skill, we will train you and then get you up to where you need to be. And then if this is your position, you ace that position. And then when you have these multiple players working, you can quite easily do a blind pass because you know someone is there, and all that happens because you work as a team.
I've got your imagery.
And in my opinion, all that works because you function as a team, wherein if that person who's supposed to receive your blind pass is suddenly like, you know what, I don't feel like it today, you don't work as a team. Yeah. So yeah, I kind of agree with that metaphor.
Yeah, 100%. And it's, as every good team is, it's a collective of leaders within that team. So it's not just one captain going, hey, this is the way that we need to run, but it's a matter of the other kind of layer of senior leaders within the team leading by example themselves and, kind of spreading that knowledge or enthusiasm down through to the other team members. Yes, it's definitely. And what a team creates is that you don't want to let down your team member. You don't want to let down the team. Yeah. And so not putting pressure, but it's just like, okay, if you're doing your best, and a lot of team, no one sets out to do a bad job at all. I don't think there's anyone in the world that does that. Yeah. But if they do make a misstep, they feel that they can be honest and open about it, and the other team members will gather around, okay, this is how we can fix this. Yeah. And that's when there's really good key learning and key growth for any team member. Yeah. Just to understand that, make mistakes, but then feel like you're safe enough to kind of be open about it and this is how we're going to fix it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that's the key thing, being open about it and being able to fix it. I think that's quite critical, which fortunately, I think when I look at the industry as a general sort of the top 10%, I think do exactly that, which is probably why they're in the top 10%, probably. But it's a bit unfortunate that for a bulk of the design industry, there seems to be a lot of, in my opinion, again, a lot of insecurity and a lot of lack of experience. And the combination of both of them tends to become quite dangerous for everyone involved. So if I'm just trying to think if there's a way that this can be taught. Can you be taught to be a good team player in some way?
I don't know. It's a good question. I think it's you have to be open to it, I guess. You have to be open to learn, the kind of the door has to be open for improvement. If you come to any environment thinking that you're already it, you're the final finished product, then no, there's no place for you in a team. So I think once you're open to it, then it relies on like I said, the senior leaders to lead by example, share the knowledge, share the openness and mutual respect with everyone. That's definitely, I think that's a key thing, which I think I should have said before. I mean, you have to have respect for people and be open. I think then that's the way in which a good team player can elevate. Yeah. And certainly as a lot of it is up to the senior leaders and the captain to acknowledge that growth when it does happen. Yeah. Whether it be by financial compensation, whether it's just kind of even calling them out at lunch and celebrating our wins.
Yeah. 100%. And there's something else which happens with that as well, which again has been something which I've noticed, which is, again, under the metaphor and the umbrella of a team. And I think Steve Jobs probably said this, which is A players tend to attract other A players, B players tend to attract other B players. So I think that if you have these individuals who are passionate and want to learn more, I think they attract similar people, I feel. Do you think so?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I guess it's a kind of it's another way of saying birds of a feather, right? We kind of tend to attract people that you're like-minded around. Yeah. And another way is, I guess, saying that you're the sum of 5 people around you, the average of the sum of 5 people around you. So you have these kind of gravitational pulls between like-minded and people. Yeah, and I like to think that MKD has this kind of thing that we do attract talented people. That's certainly me as a CEO, and I'm hoping that my radar is on the talent. But also, I'm also looking, when I do look for someone like in a graduate, I look for potential, and that's sometimes very quick to see. And sometimes, I have had that experience a few years ago when you see that potential, you think it's there, but then it just takes a little bit longer to come through. Yeah. So it's definitely something that if we're looking at those people coming together as a team, then they're like-minded.
True. I think at this point in the episode, I typically like to inform our listeners, because up until this point, I think we kind of understand, what makes Mark Klever to an extent, although that is quite, there's a lot of history there to go through, but I think they get the general idea. I think now would be a good point to sort of look forward with MKD. You're obviously at a very unique position wherein you can kind of be part of design in studio, but then you can also think about MKD in form of, 5-year projections, 10-year projections, etc., and so on. In your mind, although MKD is fairly new, are you already thinking about what the future of MKD looks like? And if so, are you doing anything to actively go down some kind of vision?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm a little older than I.
Oh no, Mark! Come on, not a day over 21, man. Not a day over 21.
So definitely, I've got. But what I've always said, I said this to my wife once, and she was shocked, because she's in education, and I just kind of offhanded said, isn't it amazing that we're both in the position that we can just keep working until we die? And she was like,
I don't think so.
That's not my plan. And I was like, kind of said that out loud. So yeah, I will never kind of not pick up the pen. I'm going to be involved in this. I think it's just, it's what I do, what I am, what I'll always be. However, I do want to see this as an opportunity to, and this is exciting. I mean, I've recently, like in the last few months, had this thought about, okay, what is the next phase? MKD is almost a year old, but it's been 9 years in the making. If I have to kind of think about that. And it's been 9 years of learning of how a small boutique design firm can work. It's had some positives. It's had some failures. It's had some, missteps that have been key learning experiences. But I do think I've got a good handle on what a boutique firm, what that looks like, and what that needs to sustain as in terms of architecture. So, but I'm also open to expanding within our realm of design certain things. And we spoke about one only a few minutes ago about lighting design or product design, something that's also been by default in a lot of our projects. We end up designing product that's just one off, you review a shop drawing and there it goes. And it'd be nice to have some time to get more into that. And when I think about, it was maybe about 13, 14 years ago, I visited a studio in Milan, Matteo Thun, German architect, but a resident in Milan. He was designer for Missoni, and we were collaborating with him, and I went across and saw his studio, and that was when I was like, I want this. I went into his, it looked like an Apple store way before Apple stores were even thought of, almost pre-iPhone time. It was actually, it was back in the day. And it was just beautiful, but it was a workshop. He had product design undergo. He had a resort he was doing in Bali. He had work he was doing for Missoni, and had a couple of chair prototypes kind of kicking around his office. And all of his team were working on some absolute machines. They were all working in 3D, all working on ArchiCAD. I think they were working on ArchiCAD, all working on Apple Mac, which is, also one of my favorite kind of machine platforms. And so for me, now I'm thinking, well, I'm kind of halfway there, got this boutique kind of firm, and I would like to really dive into some product stuff. That's, I guess, something which is very, it's like it's containable, and you can really determine how far you can turn it on and off. You can decide when that's enough, or you can decide when I'm going to throw some real resources and at this and see how far it goes, as opposed to take another leap into a different kind of venture.
Yeah, I think it is kind of very forward thinking, right? Because again, if I think of the conventional studio, most design studios, or more architecture studios, more interior design studios, architecture studios tend to obviously offer architecture design as a service, but then very rarely do they do much else. They may sort of go down slightly alternative route with AOR and PM and things like that, but it's still kind of in design services. Same thing with ID. But I think a lot of firms which I'm seeing now are seeing, obviously there's a commercial incentive by having a diversified vertical of income, surely, fine. But I think they're actually seeing that there's genuine interest and passion in going down these different routes. Product design for sure, but even things like speccing a product with a vendor, which then becomes something which the firm can take ownership in, or a specific kind of staircase that you design becomes, again, a product to an extent. And I see a lot of interest in that. And I'm wondering why that wasn't there 15, 20 years back. You see it with the grades, with the Eames chair and so on. It was clearly there, but it never really became mainstream where every studio sort of did this. Why do you think that is? Are people just too busy all the time?
Maybe. You mean why they haven't developed their own?
Yeah, I mean, you would think, logically speaking, every designer would have a chair, a light, like a lamp or something like that. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, no, that is interesting. I mean, in the design firms I had, worked for, both as a graduate and then later on, only one of them was really interested in doing this. And I remember he developed quite a bit of his own design furniture. But the larger, I think here in Dubai, especially 10 or 15 years ago, you are talking about just post financial crisis, when really it's all about a business case, what you have in hand, and designers were pretty much just, I guess, kind of hunkering down for a little bit, doing what they do well, sticking to their knitting, so to speak. That could be it. I'm not sure. All
right. A lot of food for thought. I think it's very tricky when I do these episodes because I feel like there's always so much we can talk about, but I feel like we should probably save that for another episode, maybe episode 200. Who knows if we make it up till then. But this is normally where we do something called the aForm tradition, which is basically a blind question from a previous guest to you, not knowing who you are. You don't know who asked the question. The person who asked the question doesn't know who got the question. And to make it more fun, we have a little pool where we quite literally pick out a random question from. So sometimes they're a bit of fun and sometimes they get quite philosophical. So we're going to see what you have today. I think trusty Joel has put it together for you. So I'm really reflecting like how unorganized I am. Normally I have this like completely like typed out, but I literally have to like scroll through it. Okay. All right. I got it. Cool. So your question is, it's a bit philosophical. So your question, and clearly this has come from an urban planner, so bit of context. Would you prefer a future where cities are fully automated and efficient, but less spontaneous? Or should cities remain messy, creative, at the cost of some inefficiencies like traffic?
Definitely the latter. There's something to be said for efficiency and getting to where you want, on time or in good time. But, it's always, I don't know, to quote, couple of musicians, it's all about the journey.
It's all about the journey. Yeah.
So, I mean, cities aren't, by their very nature of being a collective of chaos, that's something that I think as a human you want to keep. The ability to turn left or right.
Yes.
Not just follow a
silo tunnel.
Yeah, not. But I'm interested in things like, because I guess if you look at it in the future, you look at science fiction movies and you look at Star Wars, for example, where you might look at some of the prequels where they clearly show a futuristic city which has these lines of highways in the sky. Yeah, but there's always the opportunity to jump out of it, and
true.
So if we can have
a coffee shop I liked,
if we can have that efficiency, definitely. If there's opportunities to do both, that would be the magic. But I still want to be able to unplug and do something spontaneous.
Good answer. I'm kind of in the same camp. Although there have been times where I wish, if only I could just levitate over all this crowd / traffic and get to where I need to be. That would be cool too. But yeah,
I think you can do that in the chaotic city though, right? You can still do that. Maybe that would be a lot if it's not regulated in some way, then the likelihood of you kind of, hitting someone going the other way could be quite high. But I'd like to see somewhere where you can do both. You can jump into this lane in the current and then decide to pop out.
Right. Yeah, makes sense. I mean, it is possible if you think of, sort of underground hyperloops with a very dense pedestrian experience on the ground. And then you get these multiple tiers of airspace for, hyperfast, intercontinental, local, domestic, etc. It is possible. Then you have like this tiered system of transport across the ground level, rather than just being at the moment it's kind of all at ground. There's cruise liner and then ground, I think.
Yeah, I guess we're all talking about transport here. It seems that's
like
the main thing about a city's chaos is how they manage transport, whether it be private or public. Yeah, to date, there hasn't been any kind of great solution, right?
Yeah. I mean, I do hope that we're working towards a future where there is this good mix like you put together. I think that makes sense. Interesting. I should actually get in touch with who asked this question and be like, what do you think? Anyway, because this is episode 100, typically this is where we would conclude. But because this is episode 100, we have something slightly more, a bit of a rapid fire question round. So there's no thinking. You just got to say what comes to mind. We're going to do a bit of this or that, where I'm going to present two options to you and you got to say which one you prefer quite quickly. Can get into the details of it if you want. But for the most part, snappy responses. So let me pull this up, which is... we're starting
I'm nervous.
We're starting off really hard. I apologize to all our listeners because you're going to have opinions about this, but let's see where it goes. So, this or that. Sydney Opera House or Burj Khalifa?
Burj Khalifa.
Sagrada Familia or Guggenheim Bilbao?
Sagrada Familia.
Falling Water House or Barcelona Pavilion?
Tough one. I have to say Falling Water. Falling Water.
Modernism or neoclassical?
Modernism.
Eames Lounge Chair or LC4 by Cobb?
Eames Lounge.
Sketching on iPad or sketching on paper?
Paper.
3 hours in the design studio or 3 hours on site?
In the design studio.
Award-winning project or happy client?
Happy client.
Design project in the desert or design project by the beach?
In the desert.
Aston Martin DB9 or Porsche GT3 RS?
DB9.
V6 or V8?
V8.
And finally, I feel like I know the answer to this. Y60 or Y61?
Y61.
Y61. All right, there you go. Whew, I was nervous about that. I feel like our trusty Joel has put in some thought into these questions. Thank you so much. That was a lot of fun. Mark, this has been awesome. A very fun way to end episode 100, I think. And this has been quite a journey for all of us involved. What I'd like to tell all of our guests is that this show is only possible because people like yourself donate your time and make the show possible. So on behalf of all of us at aForm, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you.
Awesome. And for the rest of you guys, we will catch you guys next week. Fellow aFormer, thank you so much for your time. If this episode added any value to you, please share it with anyone who may benefit. If you want to carry on the discussion, please get in touch with us over socials. We are at aForm Show on the gram and hello@aform.studio on email. That is at aForm Show on the gram and hello@aform.studio on email. Until next time, stay inspired.